Hi everybody, very welcome to my Sunday night live stream here on YouTube. I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are, and I hope that you are looking at this and using the Mentour Aviation app to send me messages. I've been very active the last couple of days on the app. We've been discussing things like the Air France Flight 66 engine failure they had yesterday. And there's been a lot of discussions going on, and I'm going to use the app to answer quite a lot of questions today. So make sure that you have your mobile device with you, and that if you open up your mobile device, you choose the Mentour Aviation app. Okay, if you haven't downloaded it already, do it. It's completely free. There are paid playlists in there. For example, if you want to find out how to deal with an engine failure in real life and how we deal with engine failures, how we read checklists and so on, well, then you can buy the playlists about engine failures. But you don't have to. You can just go in, use the chat, talk to other people, talk to me, talk to other pilots, and I will send out news and messages out through you via the push function. But you need to register, so make sure that you don't only download the app but also register. Right, so let's see who's here. Omar, good to see you. Oliver Johnson is here, and Daniel Costa, Michteng, very, very good, and nice to see you all. Let's start off with some questions, okay? Because the way that this works, if you haven't seen this before, is that I answer the questions that you put out there, primarily through the Mentour Aviation app, but also through the super chat and through this chat function over here. That little ding you just heard was the first question coming out of the Mentour Aviation app. So let's have a look and see what people are saying in there. There we go. Mentor, good to be watching another live streams. Do tail strikes happen often? And if so, why don't manufacturers install a retractable wheel on the tail on the aircraft in order to avoid tail strike? A good question. Tail strikes doesn't happen very often. It's very rare, actually. It's more common on the longer types. For example, the 737 was built to be as tall as the 300 is and the 200 is. Okay, that was the original size. And then obviously Boeing has been continuously stretching and stretching it, and added on the bigger engines to it, but they haven't really changed much of the landing gear, which means that for every version that is longer, it's going to have less and less tail clearance. So on the 737-800 and the 900, and also the MAX to a certain extent, but the MAX will have a new landing gear assembly, the tail clearance has just gotten smaller and smaller. And at the moment, when we rotate, we have about this much. Right, about half a meter of tail clearance if we do a correct rotation. So the 800 does have something called a shoe at the end. You might see that on the shorter 737 models. You don't have that shoe, but on the 800 and 900 you are, and that has a crushable material inside. So if we do a light tail scrape, that shoe get crushed down, and we have a little thing that we can have a look at, see if it's in the green or the red zone. If we've done tail strikes and it's in the green zone, it's actually okay to, after engineering inspection, obviously, to go with. But there's no wheel on it. And the wheel, the only aircraft I know that has a little wheel on it was the Concorde. I think has a little tail skid wheel. But it's very rare, okay? It happens a couple of times a year. And normally during takeoff because of crosswind takeoffs and because of too high rotation rate. Sometimes it happens on landing. And when it happens on landing, it tends to be much graver damage to it. And that has to be when people come in and done a bounce. And then done a high bounce. And the spoilers has actually come up, and then that's touched down again, and then it has touched the tail. So it does happen. Cool. Do you use a flight simulator, and what simulator do you use, and why? No, at the moment I'm not using flight simulators. Okay, the only flight simulators I'm using is a level D simulator that I'm actually instructing on, which is the full flight motion simulator that we use to teach new pilots coming onto the type. But no, I'm not using any flight simulators at the moment, and the desktop simulators. I am thinking about possibly using one to demonstrate a few things, so I'm looking into that, but I haven't started with that. Cool. Kieran McLean, what has been your most intense descent rate? I've had descent rates in the order of 6,000 feet per minute, I think is the highest, 5 or 6,000 feet per minute. you know, obviously practiced more than that when it comes to the emergency descent and things, but generally speaking, those descent rates you come up to if you're being capped very high and you're at a high altitude and then you get a very large descent clearance, so maybe 20,000 feet descent clearance, which happens, and you want to get back on the path. What we tend to do then is we press level change, we bring the speed up to maybe 300, 310 knots or something like that, and then you can also use speed brake. And when you do, the aircraft is going to pitch down and it's going to start accelerating to meet that speed. And with the extra drag you get from the speed brake, it can achieve very high descent rates indeed. But you have to be careful so that you're you know, reducing the descent rate well ahead of your cleared altitude so that you don't shoot through. Good. By the way, guys, if I didn't mention it, if you see that there's a lot of people coming in and asking questions and you don't get your question through, then feel free to use the super chat. That's the little dollar symbol you see below the chat there. If you press that, you can actually contribute money to the channel and get your question guaranteed answered. All right. I'm going to be doing a slightly shorter live stream today, and the reason being that I'm going to get up very early tomorrow morning and do a really long 4-sector day. The way it looks from my weather applications, it looks like it's going to be quite challenging weather tomorrow as well. So I'm going to want to go to bed a bit early. Does Boeing has a brake fan? I guess it's a fan brake, it says, but brake fan. Some do, we don't. All right, I don't have any fans on my brakes that can cool it down. We check the cooling schedule that we have and make sure that we're staying on the ground, releasing the parking brake and so on to get maximum cooling around the brakes, and then we wait. If we've had a really intense braking event, then we're going to have to wait 45 minutes or an hour before we can start moving again so that the brakes cool down. But in most conditions, we tend to use reverses, second attempt reverse, and it helps a lot when it comes to the brake cooling schedule, so it doesn't tend to be a problem normally. Stellan Skarsgård. If it is Stellan Skarsgård, big fan. If not, great name. Hi. I see that you haven't asked any question, and if this happens sometimes, in that case, you can just go into my Facebook group or my Facebook page and send me a direct message there, and I will answer it for you on my Facebook instead, if you intended to ask a question. If you just intended to say hello and support the channel, then thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, guys, before I forget it, I have a huge crew, or a really, really great crew of people helping me on Patreon at the moment to review my videos. And as you might have noticed, I'm increasing the pace of videos that I'm churning out, which means that they're doing a fantastic job checking my videos before I release them to make sure that they're good enough to release to you guys. And they're also contributing with a little bit of money to keep the channel going. And if you want to help out with that, and maybe if you're at the higher tier in Patreon, we can schedule a Skype call, just one-on-one, and we can talk about what your goals are or check out your aviation English level or something like that. But if you're interested in that, then go into Patreon. Okay, patreon.com/Mentour Pilot, and I'll be very happy, as seen in this picture there. All right, cool. Let's see. What about crosswind landing, Alessandro Ferrero? What about crosswind landing? I'm going to be doing crosswind landings tomorrow. As it looks like now, I might be up to maximum crosswind tomorrow, so it'll be very interesting. I will be doing instructional videos on that. It will be coming up in the Mentour Aviation app during the winter, because I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the simulator, which means I have access to a simulator so that I can start producing some new video project coming up in the Mentour Aviation app, so stay tuned for that. And obviously I'll be doing more technical videos for the channel as well. Cool. What would you do if you have a full elevator hardover? Yeah, that would be a bad day. There's not much you can do if the elevator actually falls to full hardover. I mean, we can use trim to control pitch to a certain extent, but if you have a full pitch forward on the elevator, you unfortunately there's not a lot to do. It would be a very, very bad day indeed. Cool. More questions from the Mentour Aviation app, and this is how it looks, guys. When you guys send me and you use Alpha Mentor, then that sends me notifications, and if I have time and I'm available, I will be answering to you directly in the chat, or like today, I'm using it to answer here in the live. So, Mentor, would you rather have a yoke or side stick on your aircraft? Well, I'm a Boeing guy. I like my joke. I like to have it in front of me. I've never tried a side stick. I would love to try a side stick. I'm gonna see if maybe in one of the videos coming up this winter I'll get a chance. You never know. So since I never tried it, I can't really tell you if I would prepare it or not. Everyone I talk to say that the side stick feels very good. Feels very natural to fly with it once you've learned how to do it. But I'm kind of a Boeing guy, so I do like my big joke in front of me. So, Dave Amenta on the super chat. Hi again, Mentor. Any idea what the ideal landing rate is, as in feet per minute descent, just prior to touchdown for the 7.3? I understood too low means delaminated tires. Well, I mean, we're coming in with the descent rate of about 750 feet per minute, and we keep that all the way down to about between 30 and 20 feet. At about 30 feet, I start kind of checking the controls a little bit. It doesn't mean that I start to flare, I just start feeling where the aircraft is, because depending on how it's trimmed and how heavy it is and stuff, you might need different back pressure in order to achieve a perfect flare. Then about 20 feet, I start flaring, and that means just increasing the pitch at about a degree and a half or something. So I would say that the descent rate probably comes down to maybe, it's very hard to say, 250, 200 feet per minute, something like that. It's very, like, since I'm looking outside then and looking down the runway, I never actually look at my IVSI as I'm landing. That would be a simulator thing to do. But it's something, if you just pitch up a degree or 1.5 or something like that, and what we call for is arresting the descent rate. So we don't want to stop the descent rate, we want to arrest it. So it's not like flying a smaller aircraft like a Cessna or something where you try to stop it and stall it and down. No, the 737 you land with its full flying capability still left. Okay, and I hope that answers your question. Cool, call out my name, sir. Anil Budhiraya. Anil Budhiraya. Good to see you here, man. What did you take for GCSEs and A-level? What were your grades? Well, I didn't do GCSEs or A-levels because I'm from Sweden and we don't use that system. When I applied for the government-sponsored program that I managed to get into, that actually paid for all my flight training in Sweden, I had a perfect score. Okay, when I applied, I had the equivalent of 20.0, which is maximum on every single subject. Now, I didn't maintain that during the Swedish gymnasium. I couldn't, because the amount of workload that came in when you had to do both the ATPL subjects and the natural science degree at the same time didn't allow me to. But I finished off at the degree of about 18.3, I think, where maximum is 20. Even after I finished that. So this is what I've been telling you guys. Stay in school, make sure that you focus on school, because not only will it show that you have determination, it will also teach you to have good study rhythm, study techniques, and if you do, it's going to be much easier to get through your ATPL theory, because that's going to require you to have very high study rhythm. Right, more questions then. Like I said, guys, use the super chat if you have something important to ask. Mentor, is relationship in marriage hard when you're an airline pilot? It can be. All right, this is one of those questions that keeps popping up on my live stream. I should really bring my wife in here to answer that question. Now, in my case, I've been very lucky and been working for an airline that allows me to get home every night and stay home on a permanent, like a fixed base roster, which means that I can predict where I'm going to be, I can predict when I'm going to be off, and I'm going home to help my wife with everything that goes on, you know, in the normal home life, which means that in my case, it's been fairly okay. You know, you have your normal marital things, you know, not that has anything to do with aviation. However, I do have quite a lot of friends who have gone down to fly in the Middle East, for example, and brought their wives, and the wives have started off as being working, and then they have gone with them down to the Middle East and stopped working and just staying home with the kids. While they're away on quite long trips sometimes, and that can have a very, very bad effect on your marriage, especially if your wife or husband starts getting bored with it. You know, and I've done a lot of videos on this. Actually, you can check it out on my channel. But there are problems. It's one of those downsides of this occupation, unfortunately, that it's harder than other occupations to to maintain a good relationship, and that's because of being away and on, you know, a schedule that maybe doesn't allow you to be off when other people are off, so you might not be able to attend weddings and family events and things that happens in the weekend and things like that. So there's no getting around that is a problem. Cool. More questions then for the Mentour Aviation chat. You notice that I'm gonna go over more and more to the Mentour Aviation chat. And to be perfectly honest, my goal at the moment is I'm going to make some changes to the chat, to the app, and those changes will probably include possibilities to live streams directly with the app users. And then I will probably go from doing it here on YouTube to the app completely, for the simple reason that I want as many people as possible to use the app. Okay. It is free, once again, but because I want people to be inside there, to be discussing things, and I want it to become an aviation hub. Anyone who's interested in aviation should have this app, so that if you have a question, anything comes up, you know where to go, and there's going to be people there who are positive, constructive, and help you out. That is what I'm trying to achieve, and I need to get people in there to get a critical mass so that the chat keeps running, because if you go in there and there's no one in the chat, it's no fun, you know. So that's why I'm trying to push this all the time, if you guys have been wondering about that. So, Bajrovic Productions, good evening, Mentor. What are the airspeed regulations by altitude? Yeah, so in A airspace, which is above flight level 100 in most cases, there is no real speed restriction. You might be given a speed restriction by air traffic control to facilitate traffic patterns and so on. Below flight level 100, it tends to be 250 knots, all right? You need to be around 220 knots on downwind, about 180 knots on base, and then 160 knots down to about 4 miles. Those are some kind of guideline speed regulations that you should be living by. But the 250 knots below level 100, it's an actual rule that you should follow, unless air traffic control takes it away for whatever reason. They might need you in Cat C airspace, for example, to go quicker. All right, but in my airline, we decline it during the descent. And we do it in the climb mode only if they specifically, sorry, we can do it if we're specifically instructed during the descent, but we decline it if it is an option. And during departure below flight 100, we also keep 250, but that can be taken away by air traffic control. So more questions here in the chat. So Nirmjan, first of all, Nirmjan, please do not send in the same question over and over again, because it pisses people off in the chat and it's not fair towards other people. So the question you had was, do you have any privileges becoming a pilot? And the privilege is flying an aircraft, seeing sunsets, seeing sunrises from flight level 400 with a cup of coffee in your hand together with nice colleagues. Those are privileges in itself. However, the other privileges include, of course, a quite good salary when you have gotten through that first initial stage of being a cadet, where the salaries don't tend to be very high. The salaries do go up as you gain experience. I am more off, so I have more days off and more time with my family than I would if I did a normal 9-to-5 job. And there's also some travel benefits, like I do get discounts on flights, and both with my own airline and other airlines. So there are some perks with it. Discounts on airports, discounts on airport parking, things like that, but nothing huge. In other airlines there might be, you know, if you work for a big flag carrier, you might have all sorts of perks, including, you know, added money for getting your shoes shined and stuff like that, but not in my airline. Well, Mentor, will you ever go long haul? I'm going to say maybe to that. I have not been interested in doing that up until now, because I have small children and my priority is to stay with the family and see them grow up. I don't want to be away from them. As I go older and my kids grow up and they don't want to hang out with dad anymore, and my wife don't want to hang out with me anymore either, or I can bring her with me or something like that, then maybe in the future it will be a thing for me, but at the moment not where I am in life. But you should never say never. The way that this industry works is that maybe tomorrow my airline won't exist, or I get fired for whatever reason, or downsize or something like that. So you can never be too sure. Basically in any industry you can't be too sure nowadays, but the aviation industry is very cutthroat. So you can't really say categorically, no, I'm never going to do that, or no, I'm never going to do this. You know, if I don't have a job, I'm going to do whatever job that I can get. out there that still enables me to have, you know, reasonable life quality. Mikkel Christensen, thank you very much, Mikkel, for supporting the channel. Hi Mentor, love the videos, thank you. When and how during your training and initial job search did it become clear that you would be flying the 737NG? This is an excellent question, and actually I'm getting this question a lot, okay? And that question normally takes the form of, do you get to choose which aircraft you're going to fly? Now, in my case, I did my training, okay, my initial training to get my licenses. At that stage, you just focus on getting your licenses and you're dreaming about finding an employer. Right? As you get closer and you start to do your multi-engine training and your MCC course, well then it starts to become a reality and you have to really start thinking about this. And what you realize at that point is that you will take whatever job you can find. It doesn't matter what aircraft type it is, it doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's someone who's paying you to fly an aircraft and giving you experience, you will be happy. And that's just a fact. It doesn't matter if they're flying a 737, a Boeing, or if it's a Antonov, or if it's a short 360 or whatever it might be. Alright, that's the first thing. So in my case, I was very lucky. One of my friends was accepted into my current airline and they were looking for more people and they couldn't find any because this was in the early days of the airline. So they asked my friend, do you have any friends who have the required licenses? And they said, well, I know one guy. So I was actually called up by the recruiters asking, can you come down, are you interested in coming down and doing a screening for this particular airline? Which, duh, of course I was. No one, everyone would have killed to get that phone call. So I went down and I did my my assessment, which was 3 days of grueling assessment with math exams and interviews with psychologists and something called a NAS test, which is basically 4 hours inside a sweat box where you are subjected to different screens with different math jobs, and while you have to drive a joystick and answer a question on a different screen. Bad, all right. But I managed to get through it. And when I got through that and they called me up, we were 5 of us that went, only 2 of us managed to get through. The other ones started getting phone calls and I could see them like, I'm just, one after another I saw that happening, and then my phone rang and I thought my heart was going to stop. So I took the phone and they said, congratulations, we are willing to offer you this position providing that you can get the type rating together with us and so on. At that point I knew I was going to fly the 737, not before then, alright? Before then it could have been any aircraft, it could have been anything from just being paid to fly a Cessna 172 to fly a Beech Air or something, you know. And this is what you will come to learn. I hope that makes sense. More questions from the app, guys. So, Sam the Ryanair man, Mentor, good evening. Good evening, Sam. Sam is very active in the chat, and I thank you for that, Sam. It's very interesting to see. Which country are you flying tomorrow? And not asking for the airport. Yeah, tomorrow I will be flying to Holland first and then to the UK. So I'll be doing 2 flights tomorrow. And in the UK, it is extremely windy, according to the charts. I think it's gusting up to 43 knots where I'm going. So that'll be a ride. If you guys are out hanging around the airports tomorrow, doing flight spotting or whatever, then I think tomorrow will be a good day to see some spectacular stuff. Mentor, let's see. Mentor, can you take rest when flying, like go out and have a nap? I did a video on this. If you're wondering if pilots can sleep while they're flying, I did a video on that. Check that out. That gives you some indications. If you're flying long haul, then yes, you will have a relief pilot, which means that you will do your duty, that you will go out and you can chill either in first class or in a crew bunk, get some food and a nap or whatever. And then you get back in and work. If you're flying short to medium haul, we have something called controlled rest that you can use on longer flights. They have some specific rules for that, and then it includes one pilot that can do rest at any given time. Obviously, because both of them can't be resting. But there's some very specific procedures for that. If you're interested in, check out the video on it. Right, so. Is an FAA ATPL the best option above others? From Brandon Weaver. Yeah, but that depends on where you're going to be. You know, you need an FAA license if you're going to be in the US. In that case, you need it. If not, then you're going to have to convert your license to an EASA license or whatever, Chinese license or something that you're going to have to fly. So if you are intending to stay in the US and you have the right to live and work there, then absolutely, that's the way to go. Otherwise, you might be able to find a really good quality and maybe a cheaper school in the US, but then you have to factor in, if you don't want to fly in the US, that you're going to have to come to Europe and you're going to have to redo your the exams and probably some flight training as well. I have a video coming up about conversions from the FAA to EASA and from the other way around as well. So I did an interview with a flight school about how they do this, how they do conversions. So I'm going to be releasing that on the channel shortly, probably not this week, but maybe the week after. So stay tuned for that one. Right, so more questions on the super chat from Thomas Sesh. Hi, does the column alter its neutral position during trimming, so you have to leave the column slowly so you don't have to leave the column slowly to the neutral position? Yeah, it actually does move. When you trim it, you'll see the column move. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Mentor, what do you think about Ryanair's pilot shortage? Oh, I bet you've been waiting to ask me that. Like, this is the thing, guys. On this channel, we are not talking about specific airlines. And why is that, you might ask? Well, there's a simple reason for that. Okay, first of all, there are other forums available. You can go out on Peeproon, or you can go out to other chats, and you can go to the Mentour Aviation chat and talk in there about these things. Okay, but I will never be talking about individual airlines, be it British Airways, Ryanair, EasyJet, or whatever it might be, because I don't think that it's relevant for what this channel is trying to achieve. Right. On the other hand, when it comes to pilot shortage as such, I can discuss that. Okay, so I'm not going to be talking about Ryanair or whatever problems they might have or not have, but the pilot shortage we can talk about, because the pilot shortage is something that I've done a video about a year ago. I said that the pilot shortage is coming. Brace yourself. If you're an airline out there, make sure that you have your pilot source kind of cooped up, because this will happen. It's simple mathematics. Less and less pilots are being trained because the standard or the salaries and stuff for pilots have been going down for 2 decades. They've been going down from a very high level down to a not so high level, but okay level. But still, it has had an impact on pilot training. That, on top of the fact that the oil price is extremely low, which has made a lot of airlines that maybe shouldn't be flying if the oil price was higher, but is now flying and actually profitable, staying in the market. Okay, those airlines, on top of the ones, the big low-fare companies, the big Gulf companies, they are buying a lot of aircraft. Okay, and when you have that, when you have a lot of available airlines, a lot of airlines buying aircraft, a lot of people retiring. There's always people retiring, but there's been like the baby boom generation has basically gone now. They're on their way out. The ones coming from the 50s. Well, then there's a pilot shortage. You know, it's simple like that. Now, I know that there's people out there who maybe have your licenses and haven't been able to get a job, who is just fuming now, saying that how can he talk about pilot shortage when we have pilots that are available on the market and but doesn't get a job. And the sad fact is this, that some people maybe need to retrain themselves and go and do a little bit of sim training and stuff, because if you lose your currency and you're not getting jobs, you're going to interviews but you're not getting jobs, so then you need to change something. And also a very sad fact is that there are people who just shouldn't have been doing the training, and this is why I have been very, very clear with you guys that the first thing you should do after you've gotten your class 1 medical, make sure you get a class 1 medical first, obviously, is to go and get a proper suitability test done and pilot aptitude test to make sure that you can get elected. Okay, because there's no point getting through the flight training, but you can do even if you're not suitable. All right, the schools will push you through, but when you get to an airline interview, the airlines will not let you through. No matter how much pilot shortage they have, they will not what they call lower the standards. Right, they will make sure that the pilots that they are hiring are potential captains. They never want to hire a first officer only. They want to hire potential captains. And hence, they're doing some specific tests to make sure that you guys are up to the task and you are creme de la creme, okay? And if you can't get through those tests, and they are very similar to those aptitude tests I'm talking about, well, then you won't get a job, no matter how much you have your license and no matter how big the pilot shortage crisis is. Okay, that's the bitter truth to it. And that's why, at the moment, my aim, what I'm trying to do with whatever little influence I have, is I'm trying to push the airlines to realize that they should be funding the training. All right, they should be going out, looking for talent, looking for people who are interested in becoming pilots, and saying to them, listen, we do these tests. We see that you have what it takes. We see that you will be potentially a great pilot. Okay, we are going to fund your training, providing that you sign up to work for us for 7 years, or something like that. 7, at least long enough for you guys to become captains in that airline. Because, for a number of reasons. A, they will be able to secure their pilot pool very quickly, because they will be able to source out people who now cannot afford it, but who would be great pilots. Maybe you're thinking that this is exactly you I'm talking about, and it probably is, to be honest. The funding thing is a huge problem, and that is something that the airline is going to have to fix. The other benefit of that is they're only going to take in people who they know are going to be good pilots, because they are standing with the financial risk of it. Okay, so that's 2 benefits. The third benefit for them is that if they bond you there, if they reduce the salary to pay for your training, they're actually not losing that much money, but they are more or less confirming that you are going to stay to become a captain, which means that they can predict how many pilots they will have into the future. So there's 3 huge benefits to doing this, but obviously it's money out of pocket. Airlines doesn't like money out of pocket. That's why we have the current situation. All right, that was a very long answer, but that's basically it. All right, I hope that makes sense. DJ Neb on the super chat, corporate or civil, and why? If you by civil mean airline or corporate, then it depends on you, really, and what you like, what kind of lifestyle you like. I have friends flying corporate jets. If you go into the Mentour Aviation chat, you can talk to Ava, just Alpha Ava. And she is flying, I think, a Falcon 50 or something like that. She's flying a corporate jet anyway. She can tell you a little bit about that lifestyle. I have a lot of friends. Some of my best friends are corporate pilots. The problem with that life is that you are pretty much on standby. You don't fly very much normally, because you're only going to be flying when the rich owners of your aircraft want to fly. So you'll be paid anyway, but you will not be flying that much. So it takes a very long time to accrue any flight hours, but you might not care if you're happy about that. But you're going to be away for a lot. Potentially, if they want to go to the US, you're going to be gone for a week or 2 weeks, depending on how long they want to stay. So that tends to be a little bit tricky when you start getting a family. But it can be done, okay? The benefit of, and it can be very well paid, I should say as well. The benefit of flying for an airline is that it's much more predictable. You know what roster you're going to have. Even if you don't have a fixed roster, you still normally have at least a month in front of you where you know you're going to be. You know what you need to do. There's very much predictability built into it, which becomes important when you have a family, for example. So, it's going to be up to you what you want to try to do. Right, I see there's a lot of people in here. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Also, feel free to help me grow the channel as well. It's weird because the channel has close to 80,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely mind-blowing. It's fantastic. But it doesn't seem like everyone is getting my notifications. To make sure that if you're watching this now and you haven't gotten a notification, press the little button, the little bell, to make sure that you get the notifications of the videos that I'm sending. And feel free to share it on Facebook as well, to keep me growing this channel. Because the bigger it is, the more influence it is, the more I can kind of change things, and I can get better interviews and talk to cooler people, do those things. And that's what I'm trying to achieve, as those of you who have been following me for 2.5 years should know by now. Mentor, what's your take on rostering system? Strict seniority or weighted fair share? Seniority has its positives. All right, seniority is good because it keeps people staying in the airline. However, it can become very hard to manage, and it can become very rigid. So I think a fair kind of mix of the two is good. right? I think that an airline should have a seniority system when it comes to some extent rostering. Annual leave, for example, should be rostered. Maybe should be weighed in on seniority. Maybe not so that the same guys always get the same, but they maybe divide the workforce into 3 different blocks, where the people are, you know, block A, block B, block C, where block A gets to choose the best 1 year, and then next is going to be B, and next C, and the ones inside of that blocks have seniority, so that they are the ones who get the really good ones when they're at the top, but so that everyone has a chance to get good annual leave, something like that. I also think that that should be used when it comes to base preferences, because if you've been longer in an airline and you want to get the base of your choice, you should have a bigger chance to get that. However, when it comes to management positions or roster, I don't really think that it's a good idea, because the airline needs to be able to be flexible with flight hours. So, you know, I wouldn't want to be sitting in a situation where you have one guy who's really senior, who has a lot of available hours, but he doesn't want to fly that particular day because he thinks it's too long, so they can't do it. You know, that doesn't make any sense from a commercial point of view. So I wouldn't want to do that, especially not if I own an airline. Right, guys, I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of questions at the moment, so please use the super chat if you have any question that you think is really important, because I'm only going to be doing this maybe for another 5 minutes. Then I'm going to have to go to bed, guys, because it's a long day tomorrow. Mentor, how much does it cost for a Class 1 medical? I think for the initial it's a little bit more expensive. I'm not exactly sure. If you go into the chat, you can talk to the guys who've just done it. When I do my recurrent one, it's around 200 euros every year. Okay. So it's a little bit different in different countries, and different doctors also set different fees for it. But I would say the initial is substantially more expensive than that, because it's a full day. It's very hard to say. At the moment, it's my whole. Let's see. I don't know why that is. So, it seems like my internet is giving up. So, I'm going to be finishing this off now with thanking all of you for taking your time. It's great to see you all here. And get into the chat now. Talk to each other in the app. And, you know, check out both the app, but wait for my video that I'm going to release this Thursday. And then we'll do another live stream next Sunday. Have a fantastic evening, everybody. Bye-bye. Right, guys, I'm back again. Fernando Mendes just sent in a super chat question just as I was logging off. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Right, just write yes if you can hear me. In that case, I will be answering Fernando's question here now. All right, cool. So, Fernando. So, I'm just going to finish off with answering your question, and then I'm going to go. Thank you very much for supporting. So, Mentour Pilot, should I go the Airline Pilot Gateway program route, or stay in my FAA Part 141 college program for aviation? Now, unfortunately, I am not familiar with those programs. Okay, so if you're in an FAA Part 141 college program for aviation now, I don't really see any reason why you should be leaving that. However, if there is a way where you can see that you are being ushered straight into an airline, and it doesn't cost you too much money to do so, and gives you a bigger chance of getting employed, well then absolutely go for that. Okay, unfortunately I can't give you more guidance on that, because I'm not familiar with exactly what those two terms means. But if you go into the Facebook page and you send me a private message and explain a little bit, maybe I can give you some more guidance. Or if you and anyone who's interested, really go into my Patreon group, then we can have a one-on-one talk there, and kind of talk it through and see what you think is important, what is important for you long term, and so on, and we can have a discussion about that. Also, guys, as always, if you haven't already, Instagram, Mentour_Pilot, if you want to follow my day-to-day work. I put out at least one picture a day, probably more, and you can see, you know, you can see some stuff that maybe I won't be able to share on videos and stuff, but I will be able to share a snapshot of. So if you haven't already, follow me there. As always, guys, thank you very much for staying with me here on the stream. Well, I hope you're looking forward to the video release that I'm going to do on Thursday. I might do something in between, we'll see. And in any case, I will be back next Sunday with more live stream. Have an absolutely fantastic evening wherever you are. Take care of your loved ones. They are the only ones who really matter to you. And have a fantastic evening. Bye-bye.